Welcome to 60 Skills. The topic of today's lecture is, what spirit entities are safe to work with? As a general rule, there are very few that I would throw into this category. The three most common that I would throw in are the Greco-Roman gods, the Shingon deities, and for the most part, Christian entities, saints, and angels. And I will give my thoughts on all three of these in a moment. You will notice I did not mention the Lesser Key of Solomon or the Goetia or the more common grimoire work. The simple fact of the matter is, based off practical experience, what I've seen is people who engage in a lot of the work with the Lemegeton or the 72 spirits of the Goetia end up generating a very odd energetic signature about themselves that other people notice. I would also add that in my limited experience of working with these entities, I found them quite sticky and more than a little demanding. The simple fact of the matter is, I think if anybody works with those entities for any extended period of time, they are going to end up creating for themselves a large amount of astral karmic debt. And that debt will, of course, always have to be paid off at some point in time in the future. For this reason, I do not recommend working with the Lesser Key of Solomon or the Goetic spirits that are described therein. Now then, I will talk a little bit about some entities that I think most people will have a positive experience with. The Greco-Roman gods, for the most part, if pursued from a non-dual or mental level, are incredibly well predisposed towards humanity. Working with all 12 of them in succession is sometimes euphemistically referred to as the trials of Heracles. For this reason, there is great value in working with them. There is also a reason why they are associated with the signs of the zodiac, as these constellations are commonly considered beneficent in writ large towards human beings. Next, I would add the gods of the Shingon pathos are also quite helpful to human beings, in Fudo-Myo in particular. Working with these entities, again, if approached from a non-dual or mental level, comes at a very low cost to an individual and can greatly accelerate their personal development. Now I will get to a topic that I'm sure is bound to generate some criticism. Well, what about working with the angels and the saints from the Christian pantheon? In general, this is a good idea. I will note a couple of issues that have to be kept in mind. One, most of the angels associated with conventional Christianity are involved in the war of good versus evil. Now keep in mind there are many different, metaphysical battles that can be waged out here. And keep in mind this battle of good versus evil has basically created Western civilization, created the industrial movement, created the democratic process, so on and so on, to include modern science as we understand it. So this is a very valuable thing to understand. What I will say, and that you have to be very cognizant of, is the angels for the most part can be quite bossy, particularly in their astral and near vital level manifestations. So if you choose to get involved with these, maintaining your free will can become a little tricky. That said, you don't need to work with any of these entities. To achieve an enlightened state, you don't need to work with the angels, you don't need to work with the Shingon deities, and you certainly don't need to deal with the Greco-Roman gods. You can do this entirely on your own. What I'm attempting to do here is to push people in a direction where if they choose to engage in spirit magic, that they do it with entities that are largely beneficent and are not going to derail their personal progress. The simple fact of the matter is, the spirit world is huge. There are all kinds of entities out there, and much like with normal human beings, a few of them are genuinely good, most are for the most part neutral, and there are some bad guys out there that are not worth working with under any set of circumstances. The internet, in modern publishing circles, has popularized the use of the Goetia, which personally I find to be a rather bad idea, as again, these entities tend to be fairly sticky and tend to, in my experience, ultimately exact a very high price for whatever aid they end up giving you. On the other hand, the Greco-Roman gods, the Shingon deities, And yes, the Christian saints and angels tend to, for the most part, be concerned ultimately with your spiritual or personal development. The result of which is, regardless of whatever their individual issues are, if they are pursued as a group, there tend to be favorable outcomes. Notice I am not mentioning other varieties of entities out there. I do this for one of two reasons. Either I am not familiar with them, or I don't want to go creating a lot of arguments over the fact that working with a lot of these entities just isn't worth your time. So these are some things to think about. Practice hard, consider what I've said here today. I hope to see you again soon, and be well.